Hi, this is Sean from Hammersim. Today I'm bringing you a 2000 point game using my vampire counts against my friend Costa's Warriors of Chaos. This is a casual friendly game. We're both fairly new at 8th edition, so we're bound to be making plenty of mistakes. If you spot any, please say so in the comments area. We'll incorporate that into our games and hopefully become better players. The game mode is battle lines, and this is the terrain. As you can see here, we have a dwarven alehouse, a few mystery forests, banestone, a standard fence, and a magic circle. I won the deployment role. I chose the bottom of the screen mainly because of the magic circle that you see there. The +2 to magic resistance I thought might come in handy in case he fielded high level wizards. And after all the terrain was sorted, we deployed, and this is what it looked like. I'll go through each of these units from left to right, starting with his army. We've got 26 Slanesh warriors, BSB, all sorts of funky magical items on him. Level 2 sorcerer, he was riding a demonic mount. I think he's got a familiar, so he knows one more spell than normal. We have a giant of Nurgle, and that's his favorite model, and he fields it all the time. We have a manticore, a lord riding a manticore, very scary looking guy there, and a slaughter brute, which I've never seen fielded before, did not even know they existed. Apparently this thing has the weapon skill and leadership of his lord. Yeah, very scary there, because I don't think my Terrorgeist can take on a slaughter brute. He vanguarded his warhounds up to the middle there, and let's talk about my army. Got 11 skeleton models that are full command, another 11 full command, one base of spirit swarm. We got a puny little wizard hiding inside a zombie unit. We got a little banshee hiding inside another zombie unit. We have level 2 BSB on a hellsteed, another 10 skeletons full command, 20 zombies, no command in this one, couldn't afford it. Level 3 Vampire Lord, this is my general, he's also on a Hellsteed. He is kitted for combat, so we're talking about Red Fury, Quick Blood, Dread Knight. He's got a Sword of Might and +4 ward save as well, so he's a 2+, 4+. And on the ends here, last but not least, my Terrorgeists. And as you can see, I'm fielding a Screaming Army. Before we get started here, I just want to make a quick comment regarding a particular tactic I'll be using throughout this game, and that is the Conga line. You'll notice that my 3 skeleton units are deployed weirdly at the moment. That is because shortly I'll be forming them into one long single model line facing my opponent. If you don't know what the Conga line is and want to read up about it, there are plenty of information in a lot of forums. It seems to be promoting a lot of discussion at the moment because there's many people that I guess say this is probably unsporting to use it because it does bend the rules a certain amount. Now, I have no particular feeling one way or another, simply because I've never actually seen a Conga line in a battle, and don't know how it's used. This will be my first time using it. It is the exact same for my opponent. We actually talked about it beforehand, and we both agreed that it's something that we need to have a look at, just to check out its validity and possibly decide for our future games whether it's a tactic we're going to allow between us and our friends. So yeah, if you want to see how a Conga line works, be sure to hang around and watch the rest of this video. If we play the Conga line wrong and we misinterpreted some of the rules, please comment below, because as I said, it is the first time we're using it, and we're not 100% sure whether we got the rules correct or not. Yeah, so let us know. So on to turn 1. Here I move up both my skeleton units into the Conga line, as I mentioned before. I move up my spirit swarm in front of his giant in the hopes that he will hold him up. My normal units just get shifted up slightly. I place my Terrorgeists along the flank there. The Terrorgeists have 20-inch flying march, but however that wasn't quite enough to get me within screaming distance to the slaughter brute there, so I place my Terrorgeist number 2 right up against the board edge but out of his charge frontal arc. The first Terrorgeist there has range to the Warhounds, and the Banshee also is within screaming range of the Warhounds. I moved my BSB and General up ever so slightly. This turned out to be a mistake because without the General close by, you will see later on that my Terrorgeist number 2 gets trapped slightly without being able to march, and has me in a hard spot there. During the magic phase, I managed to get a nice little bubble heal off with my Necromancer, which increases the skeleton units as well as the zombie units. As I mentioned before, I do have Master of the Dead. I then shoot my Banshee Scream at his Warhound unit. This causes 5 wounds, it breaks him, and he ends up fleeing backwards through between his General and the Slaughter Brute, and that is the end of my shooting phase. During Chaos turn, he declares a charge with his General at the Swarm, which was a very good idea because he had a magical weapon and he didn't want his Giant to be stalled. Unfortunately, he couldn't roll even on 3 dice a successful charge. He needed 9s and I think he rolled 8s. So that's a failed charge. The General moves forward 5 inches and is stuck there. He then proceeds to move his Giant and Slaughter Brute in that formation, and now my second Terrorgeist is in some big trouble. He actually, before I forget, he rallies the Hounds due to general leadership. He also moves up his Warriors as well as the Sorcerer. During the magic phase, he rolled up a decent amount of dice. I had to expend my Dispel dice on I can't remember what, but he ends up getting a bound spell Fireball off on my Spirit Swarm, which ends up killing all of them. Beginning of Vampire Count turn 2, as I said previously, I'm really needing to get that Terrorgeist out of the Slaughter Brute's charge. However, without the General being there, he's only got a 10-inch move. It severely limits me to where I could land that's away from his charge, and his Giant is covering the entire corner there. So I decide to pull him back, facing the Slaughter Brute. It's nowhere near far enough. I think he only needed to roll 3 or 4 for the Slaughter Brute to make the charge, so I'm really needing something extra now to protect that Terrorgeist. However, I do find a nice little spot on the map for the first Terrorgeist to fly into. It's out of line of sight of both the Giant and the General, and I am within 8 inches of his General. I then move up my General as well as the zombie unit there. I am hoping that during the magic phase I could get enough power dice to have a good go at Van Hells to move those zombie units up next to the Terrorgeist to support him, and possibly enough for Raised Dead as well. So during Vampire Count magic phase, I roll my Winds of Magic. I end up rolling a 5 and a 2, which is not great because my opponent now has 5 Dispel dice to my 7 power dice. I am not too sure whether to cast 2 spells or 1. I decide I would end up casting Raised Dead in front of the Terrorgeist there, and I throw all 6 dice at the cast to try and do a irresistible force. Luckily, I get the irresistible off. My opponent wasn't able to dispel it, and I place 8 zombies in that angle in front of the Slaughter Brute. The reason why I've placed them at that angle is so that if the Slaughter Brute charges, he has to face me the way my units is placed. He would overrun off the board should he choose to overrun, and saving my Terrorgeist. During my shooting phase, I target his General with one of the Screams. He's got leadership 9, and he is sitting on a Manticore, however, so there's going to be distributed shooting. I end up rolling a 15, which deals 6 wounds. He distributes, and 4 of it goes to the Manticore, and 2 of them goes onto his Lord, and that kills the Manticore outright. On to Warriors Chaos turn 2. I'm doing a little dance on my corner now because not only did I manage to pull off a save on my second Terrorgeist in that flank, I'm also put his general in a terrible position. He's now on foot. We had a few quick measures. I don't think he can get away from my next scream. Even if I have to take a charge from someone, I'm happy to sacrifice my Terrorgeist for a Lord. So yeah, he's in a bad position. He declares a charge on my zombies with his brute, which is a good call because otherwise he's going to get stuck in combat with them if I charge him. He makes it with a charge there. I don't think he had to roll. He pushes his warriors and sorcerer forward as well. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't he charge the warriors in the skeleton unit? I think he actually could have, but he needed to roll 11 or 12 on the charge die, so it was just a little bit high, and he didn't want to risk it and then end up getting stuck in the middle for another turn. He then makes a surprising move with the Warhounds and the Giant. Now, the Giant couldn't charge my Terrorgeist, but I personally probably would have charged the Warhounds in. I know it's a small chance, but if he could have survived combat for one turn against the Terrorgeist with the Warhounds, he would have saved his general there, but little did I know he did have another trick up his sleeve. His general does try and move away from the Terrorgeist just in case, and yeah, that's the end of movement. Onto the magic phase. The trick that my opponent had to counter my Terrorgeist there was a spell called Acquiescence. Now if he got that off on the Terrorgeist, it would have made it have random movement instead of me flying where I want to go and screaming at his lord. So he tried to 6 dice that cast and hoping for an irresistible. He didn't get the irresistible cast, but he did get the spell off. I can't risk my Terrorgeist not having a go as general, so I used my Dispel Scroll on it. So that was the end of his magic phase. In close combat, his Slaughter Brute kills every single one of the zombies, thunder stomps the crap out of them, and he reforms to face my Terrorgeist. So during my turn 3, I end up declaring a charge with the sidemost skeleton unit because I did not want those warriors to get the charge. I don't want them to overrun. I make it easily. I think I needed 3s, maybe 4s, and I make it quite easily. No other charges declared. I end up pushing both my other skeleton units up in the field. I turn both the Terrorgeist around so they're outside of charge against any of his models. I end up just putting my general in a safer location. I got my Banshee unit within screaming distance to the Sorcerer as well, and then just shifted my BSB more centrally to give hopefully everybody the banner aura. In my magic phase, I ended up getting one of my evocations off. He dispelled the others, making my zombies a little bit more respectable there, hopefully taking the charge from the Slaughter Brute. So during my shooting phase, I target the Sorcerer with the Banshee. I think I rolled okay, only managed to do 3 or 4 wounds. They all went onto the mount, which kills it. Here's where I make a large mistake. I target the Slaughter Brute with my next scream. Now I've had forgotten that the Slaughter Brute runs off the General's leadership, and if the General dies, his leadership drops down to a 5. So at the moment he's leadership 9, and I only managed to wound him 3 times, so he's down to 2 wounds. If I had done the General Scream, which I'm doing now, I would have killed both those models, but for the General I only needed to roll a 4+ to kill him, and I do that comfortably. In the close combat phase, there was only one unit capable of close combat, and that was my skeleton warriors against his Slanesh warriors. I issue a challenge, and he has to accept, being that he's chaos, and I think he wants to as well because he gets to roll on Eyes of the Gods table. So now this is something I'm not too clear on because it's the first and only time I've ever used the Conga formation. So if I've made a mistake here, please leave some feedback in the comments and I will learn from it. I interpreted the rule as this, being that only my unit champion is in base-to-base contact with his warrior unit, it is the only model that they can strike against, and because he is now in a challenge, then other than his unit champion who is challenging me, no other models can attack, and that's how we play the rules. During the challenge, his unit champion only managed to score 1 wound on me. I couldn't kill him because due to initiative. I had the charge, he had the ranks as well as the BSB, so I believe I only lost by about 3 in that encounter, and 3 models blew up, so my conga line formation there held up relatively well. During the Warriors of Chaos next turn, my friend declares charges with all the units that are currently not in hand-to-hand combat. He manages to roll charges with all of them, so they all make it in. During his magic phase, he didn't roll a lot of power dice, but enough to get a spell which gave him frenzy on the warriors unit. Now this is something that I wouldn't mind help with anybody watching this video, is do Slaanesh warriors can they benefit from frenzy, being that they're immune to psychology? If you can leave some comments, that would be greatly appreciated. In this first part of combat here, his warriors, now that we rule them to have frenzy, absolutely decimate my skeleton unit, and of course because they can attack the unit now, not just the champion, so it gets blown up. In the next combat over, his sorcerer declares a challenge, and I had no champion in that unit to accept, so either I had to accept with my banshee, which probably wasn't a good idea because he has a magical weapon, or I had to move the banshee to the back of the unit, which I elected to do to save her. In the he managed to do a couple of wounds to my zombies, but because I had standard and rank bonus, he only had charging and the couple of wounds, I ended up winning by 1 or 2. And his sorcerer, however, passed the leadership test and stayed in place. In the next match over, the giant doesn't actually wound that much against my unit. Maybe it did 1 or 2 wounds. I managed to get a stab back at the hounds and kill one of the hounds. So in the end, once we tallied up with my standard and the wound that I did, we ended up evens on wound count. He had charging, but because I had a musician, he technically lost by 1. However, he did roll both leaderships there and stayed in place. The slaughter brute over here didn't actually do a lot of damage to the zombies. I think most of the damage was inflicted by the thunder stomp he had, and yeah, only 1 combat by 3, which meant that with my BSB so close by, that unit only lost 2 models to crumble. So after that round of combat, the map looked like this, and in my turn I declared a charge with my skeleton unit to his warriors, just to keep them held up in that section, and then they comfortably made the charge because I don't think it was possible for them to fail. I shifted my Terrorgeists across so that I can hit the warriors from behind. I also made a second tactical error here with the second Terrorgeist. Probably should have aimed it at the scream at the Slaughter Brute, who was only on 2 hit points. Again, I forgot he was on 5 leadership. I was still assuming he was on leadership 9, but because the Chaos General had died, he's on leadership 5, but totally skipped my mind, so I lined him up behind the giant. I also moved my BSB and General on the to the middle of the map and readying them for a charge at the warriors in case my skeleton unit got completely blown up. Oh, before I forget, I also took the Necromancer out of the zombie unit there and pushed the zombie unit forward, just as another shield for my characters there. So during my magic phase, I got off a couple of invocations, increased my zombie unit to massive. If you look at the zombie unit to the Slaughter Brute, I think I actually missed an invocation in previous turns, because on my notes here it says I've got 50 now, so I must have got one invocation in before and didn't indicate it. But yeah, now my zombie units are all 45 plus and raring to go. In the shooting phase, I shoot one Terrorgeist at the warriors. I think I end up doing about 7 or 8 damage, because I remember taking away a whole rank and a bit. I shoot my second Terrorgeist at the giant, which I failed to wound. I think I rolled a 3 plus 6 wounds, only had 9, his leadership 10, so no wounds there. But lastly, I do a scream from the Banshee at the sorcerer, and I kill him outright. During close combat, I challenge with my champion, just like I did before. He had to accept with his champion. Again, he only could do a certain amount of wounds to me, and I only end up losing combat by maybe 1 this time, because he's down a rank. So not much happens in that particular fight. In the next one over, again the giant swings with his club, does a couple of wounds, but nothing overly big, so they hold up those 2 units. And then in the last fight, he does roll fairly good with the slaughter brute with the thunderstomp and 5 attacks, but being that I have 50 zombies there, I eat all the damage and only crumble a little bit, so that's stuck in. Turn 4 warriors are chaos. In this combat here with the skeletons, he misses a huge amount of his hits, so even though he was frenzied and had multiple attacks and was doing 20 plus attacks, he only got a couple through and left me with 5 models on my skeleton unit. I fought back with my 2 skeletons at the front there and managed to kill a warrior. The fight between the giants, the warhounds, and the skeletons on this side, again the giants roll poorly and I managed to kill a warhound and ended up winning combat by 1 thanks to my musician. He failed his leadership with his warhounds, and being that they're under 25% now, they can't rally, so they're as good as gone. The giant passed his leadership test on stubborn 10 leadership. Over this side where the slaughter brute was, again another round of him chewing through my zombies, but the zombies didn't care. I think I took maybe 5 or 6 wounds and then another 2 or 3 on crumble, so still well held over there. And this is what it looks like after turn 4's close combat. The warriors on the left side there have chewed through most of the skeleton unit. If they can kill that in my next turn, then they can charge the following turn. One thing I forgot to mention is he's killed 2 of my champions in the skeleton units with his champion. He's been rolling on the Eyes of the God table for chaos. His unit champion in the warriors has now an extra attack and extra strength. Back to vampire counts turn 5. By this stage I really need to get rid of the 2 monsters on my flank, so I position both my Terrorgeist over them. Now I realize that the brute only has 5 leadership, so this should be an automatic kill. And I also move my Banshee out of the zombie unit she was in and aim her at the warriors. I also just slightly adjust my zombie unit there to better take the charge if I do get charged. During the magic phase, I think I got a couple of invocations off, but by now I wasn't keeping track of it because I've got so many zombies on the board. He didn't have any wizard to help his dispelling, which made it hard. In my shooting phase, I aimed 1 scream at the giant, managed to do 3 wounds to it, so he's on half hit points now. I also did another scream at the slaughter beast or slaughter brute. he is now dead because he only had 2 wounds, and even if I rolled snake eyes on the dice, he would have suffered 3 wounds. So he's dead. I did another scream at the skeleton, the warrior unit on that side, and they copped 3 wounds. In my close combat round 5, as expected, his warriors completely smash what's left of that skeleton unit, and then his giant actually again couldn't roll enough wounds against my skeleton unit, ends up losing combat by the musician. He rolls a 1 on a d6, which means he falls over, and then he rolls an 11 on his leadership test. So if I understood the rules correctly, that means he automatically dies because he fell over and then was trying to flee, and that's an automatic death. Now you may be wondering why I didn't charge the zombies into the warriors at the beginning of this turn. The reason behind that was I did want to try my general out in close combat, and to do so with a group of zombies there as well was pretty much suicide. The combat resolution he would get from his warriors killing those zombies would be automatic death for my lord, so I really wanted to do a straight up fight between my lord and his infantry unit. Warriors of Chaos turn 5. By now the Chaos Army is pretty much decimated. There's only 1 unit left with a BSB in it. My opponent here considers charging the zombies. I know it doesn't show it on the screen right now, but that zombie unit's currently 60 plus. I made my friend an offer though. I told him, look, if you charge the zombie unit, that's fine. It pretty much will mean the end of the game because I'll bring my Terrorgeist over in the next turn. I'll have 3 screams at your unit from the Banshee and the 2 Terrorgeists. Chances are I should be able to wipe your warriors. But here is my offer. If you reform now, face my general, I will, on the next turn, charge in with no one else, just my general only, because I really want to test this close combat, and I won't scream at you, and that way we can just fight it out, and I'll get to test my ability, and he has a chance of winning the game, or at least score a crapload of points off my general, because he has a chance of blowing them up. And my friend accepted this just to keep the game interesting, and reformed his warriors to face my general for next turn. So here we go. Vampire counts turn 6. I charge in as promised. I skip my shooting and magic, and I challenge in close quarters. I had to do so because of my Dread Knight ability, and he had to accept, being that he's a Chaos champion. He accepts with the unit champion, who after killing my skeletons before had rolled multiple times on the Eyes of the God table. He has +1 attack and +1 strength. However, being that I will strike first, I managed to kill him before he can do a wound to me. I did do a few overkills, but he still ends up winning the combat by 1 due to musician. Because my BSB is within 12 inches though, I take no combat damage, and ready for the next round, which is just 1 more close combat round. He now challenges with his BSB. Again, with my first strike, I end up killing him, doing a crap load of overkill wounds. I end up breaking this unit and chasing it down and finishing the game. So by the end of turn 6, Warriors Chaos, there was nothing left on the board from his army, and I had lost 2 skeleton units and a spirit horde base, and that was the end of the game. And there we have it, the points breakdown for the Vampire Counts victory. I am going to talk a little bit about what occurred during the game next. Let's begin our analysis by having a look at one of the major factors of my victory in this match, and that is the Conga line. As you saw during the game, I was able to hold up huge units of chaos using very cheap skeleton warriors. A skeleton warrior unit that I fielded would have been around 85 points to 80 points. They were easily able to hold up units. For example, on the flank, my flank, there was a Chaos warrior unit well in excess of 450 points, and inside of his unit there was also a 200 point standard bearer, so an 80 point unit was able to hold up a unit that's well over 650 points, and to me that is breaking the game mechanics. I don't think you're meant to be able to do that. However, having said that, I might have played the Conga line wrong, so I'm looking for feedback on whether we actually use the rules correctly. And I'm not talking about whether the rules were as intended or rules as written, simply how did we play the rules as written? Was it correct? And if wrong, please comment at the bottom and tell us what we did wrong, because we are learning 8th edition at the moment, and any little bit of advice would be extremely helpful. I think something that my opponent could have really used, or definitely would have helped him a fair bit, is additional wizards. The amount of raises I was able to get off and just increase the size of my units, and especially my skeleton units on the left flank. If he was able to stop more of those spells, I think the story would have been much different. I personally would have probably saved on the mounts for his lord and his wizard that was riding a demonic mount. I would have tried and put those points into another caster and definitely a dispel scroll. One of the things that I really noticed as I'm pouring through the game notes here is I think my opponent could have done much better in terms of deployment. If you look at where his 8 warhounds are placed after vanguarding, they're kind of in the middle of nowhere in terms of what they can affect, because he's directly in front of my infantry line, which I don't mind him charging. It's not protecting any of his other units or supporting any of his other units. If it was me personally, I would have put the warhounds on the other side of his warriors, so that once he vanguard up, they're already 45 degrees to my skeleton units, and then if he gets first turn, he can march straight up very close to my skeleton units there and probably foil the Conga line formation. So in that respect, he probably could have got a little bit more out of the warhounds. If there's anybody with a suggestion on how we could have deployed, or units we should have used, or how we should have used our existing units, feel free to comment below. Both me and my friend will be reading the comments to this video to try and improve our Warhammer gaming, and we appreciate any feedback that's given to us, and we hope to be able to bring you more videos, possibly better videos in the future. Thank you for watching.